It was the 911 that made Porsche recognizable, but it's the Cayenne that made Porsche profitable. And now we're gonna try out the new e-hybrid version of the Porsche Cayenne. Now, the Porsche Cayenne has been around since 2002, and I've been fortunate enough to have driven several of the models over the years, starting with the Cayenne S, the first generation pre-facelift. But there's an interesting story about that and me, and I'll tell you about it towards the end of the video. Now, the version we're looking at here, though, is the third generation from the facelift that happened in 2023. And you can see some of the changes with the front, with the lights. It has these quad LED headlights, which looks really, really sharp. The redesigned bonnet, but really it's quite recognizable as a Cayenne through and through. Even though when we look at it, like compared to some of the older Cayennes that I've tried, it does seem a little bit smaller, even though this vehicle is actually 4.9 meters long already. It's pretty big, but most of it is really with what's under the hood, because it's got a very long hood right up here in front. So how can a casual observer distinguish a Cayenne E-Hybrid from some of the other variants of Cayenne out there? Well, for one, you look at the E-Hybrid logo, but also you look for the green calipers and the green outline over there on the E-Hybrid logo. That's what makes it distinct. But visually from the outside, it just looks like a Cayenne, which is rather nice. Now, the wheels on these are 20 inches, and they do actually look a little bit small in my opinion, because compared to the size of the vehicle, it's going to be something that you probably want to change if that's your kind of thing, or you can spec it right out of the gate from Porsche, depending on your preference. But 20-inch wheels, it looks a bit plain. It does have the nice design when it comes to the shapes of the vehicle. Porsche does do curves very well, and here we can see it. It's also got the 5-door form factor with full-size windows on all doors. But what's different here is that there are now two variants of the Porsche Cayenne when it comes to the body style. So one is this is the full-on SUV body style, but there's also the coupe variant, which would be differentiated by, if you look at the roofline, it slopes down even more like that. So that's what distinguishes the two. We haven't driven that yet. We can't wait to try it out, but I imagine in terms of driving, it's going to be pretty similar to this one. I'm really liking what Porsche is doing with the rears of their vehicles, especially with the full-width LED taillights. It just looks so proper, so classy. And then, of course, being a Porsche, the curves, the lines, it just looks so good. Dual exhaust down there, which is a nice touch. Again, Cayenne with the green border over there does look quite nice. Rear wiper over there, but what we want to see here in the back is the space. So, motorized tailgate, as befitting a vehicle of this kind of status. It's got a retractable tonneau cover over there. And in terms of space, it's about 38 inches long, 42 inches wide, and 27.5 inches from the floor up to there. If you fold down the back seat, you can actually get up to 64 inches in terms of length. It's supported length, meaning you can go longer if you want, but why would you want to? Also, what's neat here is that you can lower or raise the rear of the vehicle. Let's try that now. So if you press this down, you see it's actually going down a little bit. So it allows for loading of heavy items, no problem. But also keep in mind that there is a slope here with the tray. So if you put, let's say, I don't know, apples there, it may roll off, or golf balls, for example. So that's something to keep in mind. There are pockets all around and all that. But what's neat here is when we look under here. So if you notice, there's no spare tire. What you have there is a toolkit on what looks like a spare kind of filler tray. By the way, it has Bose subwoofer here, which is cool. But what's nice here is that if we raise this up, what you'll see is a big hybrid battery. 25.9 kilowatt hours over here. Gives you up to 90-something kilometers in urban range, yes, city range, when it comes to pure electric mode. So that is going to be the key to the E-Hybrid, because it's going to give you the best of both worlds when it comes to performance and when it comes to the range. But first, let's look at what's under the hood, because lots of interesting things going on there, even though it's pretty much all covered. At the heart of this Cayenne is a 3-liter turbo V6. By itself, it makes 304 PS, but it's also a hybrid. So combined with the electric motor, it now makes a total of 470 PS, which is close to Cayenne S territory, yes, the V8. So that is something really interesting about the vehicle, because you've got a lot of power, but you also have a lot of weight, because you do have the engine, you have the electric drive, and you have the battery system, which we showed you over there in the trunk. So all this combines for weight, and later we'll see if it actually feels heavy, because I took it out for a few days already and it actually feels sprightly and very light on its feet or tires. Now, speaking of the details here, what do we see? V6 there, you have this is the ECU here made by Bosch. It says VWAG, Bosch Matronic over there. It does have the adaptive suspension, air suspension by the way, so you can adjust the damping and you can adjust the height of the vehicle. Later inside we'll show you how. Now, what else do we see? The hood is redesigned. It's also got these double latches, which is something more proper, especially for a vehicle that can do 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds and go on to a top speed of just over 250 kilometers per hour. Anyways, not much to see here, but there's a lot to see inside. Let's check it out. There are still some out there who scoff at the idea of a Porsche where you can comfortably sit in the back. But really, what's the big deal? I mean, it's a nice and comfortable rear seat. You've got your own very wide center armrest. If nobody's sitting here, then, I mean, if somebody's sitting here, then just pull it up. It's no problem. The recline has several positions. The seat contour is really good on my back. The floor is nice and flat, but actually almost semi-flat, because if you look at the center tunnel, it's a nice and level thing. It's almost it's quite Germanic in that way, because it's got straight angles on it instead of like a rounded hump, which we do appreciate. So if somebody's sitting here, like for example your child, your son, they can sit there, put their feet up there, no problem. It's nice and flat. You got 2 USB-C ports, a 12-volt outlet, and it's a quad zone AC system, by the way. So 2 here in the back and 2 more in the front. It's controlled via here. It's heated and cooled seats depending on what you want, but why would you want seat heating? I mean, it's nice and comfortable as it is. Seat back pockets, really, it's a nice place to be, and even for a long drive, you can really relax in the back of this. The only thing missing, it doesn't have the sunshades here. Now, not that I can tell. Anyway, I don't think there is. And if there is, maybe it's recessed here, but still, it's nice and comfortable here in the back. But what we really like is what's in front. Before we get started on the interior, I want to show you the key, because it really starts with this. Now, if you see, it's very sleek. It evokes the shape of the 911, especially with the way they do the rear here. It's a really high quality piece. And it's got the Porsche logo there, unlock, lock, and trunk release or trunk open right there, because it is a motorized trunk. But yes, it's a nice thing to have in your pocket. Unlike the older Porsches, you had to insert this and then twist it. This one, no, you can just keep this in your pocket or keep it here if you want and start the car. Now, the Porsche logo here, oh yeah, this is the one that I really find myself running my fingers over on in traffic. But still, the interior. It really has evolved what Porsche is doing with the interior of the Cayenne and even all the other vehicles in the Porsche line. So this one has a rather conventional looking dashboard, if you want to put it that, but it's a glass cockpit kind of design. So you have a screen here, 12.3 inches or 12.6. I'm not sure, but this one is also 12.3 or 12.6. We'll roll in the correct numbers now. And then you've got another 10-inch screen here for the front passenger, and I actually can't see what's being projected there unless I really lean over. It's got the anti-comsat feature. Hello, fellow titos. Now, the screen here, like I said, very different, and you can configure it in many ways depending on what you want to see. But me, I prefer the 3 bezel design, which I think is just right for this vehicle. And by the way, In the 5 bezel design, you'll see different like displays. So you have temperature, your tire pressure monitor. You also have your tachometer with the speed in the middle, and your G meter for your cornering forces. You can display it all there. This steering wheel is something we've seen in a lot of other Porsche models. So it's got the slim spokes here, and same with here, and then you got controls for your audio and all that. Your cruise control is down here. It's not the adaptive kind, it's the standard kind, but still perfectly fine. Paddle shifters are perfectly placed. That's what we want out of a Porsche. But your actual transmission control is right over here. So park, then reverse right there, and when you put it into reverse, the rear camera and the 360 camera comes up, and then you pull it down to put into drive. It kind of frees up the space here, but as you can see, they also put all kinds of buttons here, which I think is kind of a shame, because they could have. These are, by the way, the controls for the dual zone, at least in front, climate control, just like the one here in the back for the 2 zones there. They could have put it up here, would make it a little bit cleaner here, and maybe free up some more space, which I think would have been really, really handy given all the stuff we have in our pockets. But if you look at here, see these grab handles here where you can brace yourself. This is something we've seen since I think the first generation of the Cayenne. They haven't really changed this shape. It just moves a little bit, and I mean moves, like from in terms of the position, but still it's nice and familiar. And I find myself when I'm just driving, I'm just like this and that. It's just nice and comfortable overall. Now, here, if you notice, there's a lid here with a piano black. It's actually a wireless charger in there. I mean, you do have your USB-C ports over there. No USB-A in this vehicle, by the way. So you have USB-C here for your wireless, for your charger, or if you have wireless charging, which if you own a Porsche, then you probably will. There's a wireless charging pad in here, and it's cooled, which is what we like. There's a compartment here which kind of doesn't really fit anything. It's not a cup holder. I mean, you do have cup holders here, but this one, I guess, put anything. I just put the key there for most driving. A center armrest with a compartment there, and yeah, that's about it. You have your Apple CarPlay, by the way, wireless Apple CarPlay. So it has Barney's phone there. It also has wireless Android Auto, which is a nice touch, and pairs up well with the wireless charger with the cooling down there. You do have your charge control here. So right now, let's go over the battery. Right now, I've already finished up all the charge. I have to go back to Porsche to charge it. But being an e-hybrid, I can just gas up and go. But to really maximize the capability of this, you should charge it up if you can, or when you can. But if you can't, it's not a big deal. That's the beauty of the e-hybrid. So this vehicle, you can have it set in different ways depending on your preference. There are presets with adjustable, with preset heights and suspension settings, because this one does have the air suspension and the variable or adaptive damping. So if you want it to be more comfortable, or sorry, more sporty, you can go here. There's no comfort mode, which is just the normal mode here. So you have normal, sport, and sport plus. So as you go to sport plus, the firmer the suspension gets. And then you have the different heights. So right now we're in the off-road 2, or the highest setting. And yeah, it is actually quite high, but you can go down to, let's say, normal. The car will go down like right now. So maybe in that camera, you'll be able to see in the fixed tripod camera, you'll see it drop down just a little bit. I can actually feel it dipping down. Let's try the extra low version right now. What we really want to do is see how it behaves on our roads. So let's take it out now before I start pressing any more buttons, because there's a lot of things to press around here. It has been a while since I was last in a Porsche. And I mean, we don't really borrow Porsches too often, but this one, like they said, oh Vince, we want you to try it. We want you to experience what the e-hybrid is all about. Now, when you step into a Cayenne or even a Cayman, it's all gonna feel like quite similar. Yes, I know the 911 is the flagship of the model range, but this one is really the one that made Porsche, well, profitable. It's the Cayenne is the model that appealed to a wide variety of people, because a lot of people want the Porsche brand, the Porsche driving dynamics, but just not in a 911. You know, it's a bit impractical for a lot of people for everyday use. This one is a practical, everyday, daily drivable Porsche. Yes, you can drive all the other ones daily, that's fine, but this one has a space, has the seating, and it has the higher driving position that you would expect out of an SUV. And this being like the original of the sports car brand SUVs, that's gonna be something that they know very, very well. And we can see it here. And the way I have it set up when it comes to the settings right now, I have it in hybrid auto with the chassis to normal. I would prefer a comfort mode, but this one does not have it. I mean, not that I can find anyway. Yes, it's like normal, sport, and sport plus. And then the level that I choose for the adaptive for the air suspension is at the off-road one, meaning just a little bit higher. Because, you know, for an SUV, you want it to be a little bit higher, but still, it's not going to be like a night and day difference. This is still a fairly low-slung SUV. And even then, even when I compare it to like the first and even the second generation Cayenne, it feels a bit like lower in terms of where you sit above the road. But still, it's okay. Now, where it really shines is in the fuel economy and the EV driving. So, with the battery topped up, the claimed range, which is around 90 kilometers on the full battery, pure electric driving, which I think is fairly accurate, because on my daily drive, I got about 2.5 round trips. That about right? About 2.5 round trips from my house to the office and back. So it gives you the pretty much the distance that you have, and that's without activating the engine. Right now, my state of charge is at 1%, and well, I'm running pretty much on the V6 all the time. And even then, the fuel economy of the V6 is quite respectable, because when I'm driving around, like in my earlier drive today, I was doing around 7.5 kilometers per liter, which is an impressive number for a 3-liter V6 in city traffic. I was doing around 18 kilometers per hour average. So that's actually pretty good for something like this, something this luxurious. And later, when I get to a charging station, I'll probably drop by Porsche. I'll go top up the battery so I can enjoy a little bit more of the EV driving of this, because that's really what you buy it for. You know, you buy one of these to enjoy the electric driving functionality of it, but you're not limited by having by needing to charge. Meaning you can just pull up to a Shell, a Petron, a Caltex, what have you, fuel up on some, well, probably high octane, the premium stuff, so you can get, you know, like the range that you want out of this. So in terms of the numbers, this one is more aligned with the Cayenne S, meaning the V8. I think that's a non-turbo V8, and then that's really more closely in line with that. So it's got 470 PS and a lot of torque. So when you put your foot down, it really does go, especially if you have it in the Sport Plus modes. It's just gonna be, it's gonna be firmer, it's gonna be all that, and it's gonna be so much fun. But for everyday driving, this is just like perfectly fine. Again, I have it in normal, so it's soaking up like all the bumps of EDSA within reason. I mean, it's not gonna be like X5 in terms of comfort or anything like that, but still, it's pretty good. And the only thing that I really have a complaint about, definitely not the handling. The handling is something I really respect with a Cayenne, but it's the braking. It feels a bit weird, like especially when you're just coming off of the line, or meaning if you're in traffic, you can feel the vehicle really wanting to overpower, let's say maybe the first 40% of the brake pedal travel. So it's really strong. So it feels weird. So sometimes when I'm in traffic and I don't, you know, and I don't want to put it into P, I will, or even the auto hold. I think it has an auto hold somewhere. But if I don't want to do that, I really gotta step on it. So if I'm like on bumper to bumper traffic on EDSA, I'll really step on the brake pedal and really firmly hold it in place to ensure that the car doesn't creep forward. So that is something I found weird in this vehicle. I'm not sure if it's just this one or maybe some of the others, but it's what I'm experiencing. But overall, it's a neat experience. Just don't come into it thinking that you're gonna get a super like plush SUV in terms of the ride, because as you can hear right now, going over this this concrete, you do feel a little bit more like the minute undulations, I guess, on the surface. It does soak up the bumps well, but still, within reason. It's not going to be like a super luxury SUV where it gives you a magic carpet, right? It's not meant for that kind of thing. It's meant to be an SUV with Porsche qualities, meaning driving dynamics, quality, in fun and power, and all that rolled into one. I wish I really can put that sport chrono lap timer to good use, but I don't want to be going that fast in a vehicle like this on our little course at the warehouse, because you know, that's not going to be good. If I had a nice open racetrack, that would be perfectly fine. So I promised you a little story time with the Cayenne, and it goes a little something like this. Back in 2007, when I was still a very, very green, very young motoring journalist, we went to a trip in Clark with the Cayenne S, the first generation. Yes, the one with the fried egg. I was with a few guys, with AG, Cito, and James. None of those guys may seem familiar to you, apart from maybe James. You know, he's all famous now. But I remember he had to borrow for a pre-owned Cayenne S V8. And he said, bro, drive it out, you know. So we took it out for a drive over in Clark. It was already night by the time we got there. And would you believe it? I almost crashed it. Because when I was entering into a corner, it was really, really dark. I didn't realize the roundabout was there. So I was doing around the I stomped on the brakes, tried to make the turn, and really did make the turn, because I'm still here with you. I don't owe the bank, you know, so many millions of pesos from a crash that would have happened, but the Cayenne got me through it. That cornering ability, even though it's a big and heavy Porsche, it's still a Porsche. That is what they dial in with these kinds of vehicles. And that's why I have such a big respect for the Cayenne, because it's something that really does represent what the brand stands for. Handling, fun. It just so happens to have much more space. Now, in terms of pricing, the Cayenne E-Hybrid, well, they actually lowered the price because of EO62. Considering everything you get with the vehicle, do you think it's a good deal for a Porsche Cayenne Hybrid? Let us know in the comments below. This is Vince of AutoIndustriya. Thank you for watching. We can't wait to try out more Porsche models. Do they have a Carrera Hybrid already? Not yet, but soon, maybe.